Peter Pelling came into this world on January 23, 1943, in London, England, to Hilda and Stan Pelling on Reservoir Road. Patricia, or Pat, was the oldest sibling, followed by Peter and then Allison. When Peter was only 2 years old, World War II ended, and he grew up in the aftermath of the war. There were still bombs unexploded where he used to play. As a young man, Peter would be considered a teddy boy because of his coif hairdo and fashionable clothing that included beetle crusher shoes and very smart clothes. In his own right, he was considered a London cheeky lad because he was always up to mischief. After leaving school, he joined the Royal Navy as an artificer, serving Scotland. Peter would master the skills required to create complex mechanical devices, such as clockwork mechanisms, steam engines, and other forms of advanced technology. Peter met Irene Rennie while in Scotland. After he left the British Navy, Peter and Irene got married in May 1963 and moved back to London, where he started his own building business, working on many large contracts for the MOD and once worked at Buckingham Palace. But that's not all Peter started. His family would grow to include 3 beautiful girls: Lorraine, Joanne, and then Susan. Family was everything to Peter. When his girls were little, he'd swing them around to Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. He loved to dance, and the girls remembered standing on his feet while he danced away. Grandchildren were his next gift. Laura and Sarah are Lorraine's children. Liam, Darren, David, and Samantha are Joanne's children, and Christopher, Samuel, and Leah are Susan's. Peter also had 8 great-grandchildren. Leah recently visited her granddad and crocheted hats and flowers for Edna and Peter. Leah and Peter shared a strong bond about the stars and the planets, and they shared a lot of messages. Peter loved a kilt, and he wore his at Liam's wedding. In 2018, Peter's daughter Joanne died. It was truly a devastating event for the family. Peter loved being an Englishman and celebrated the Queen's Jubilee. While in London, Peter gained his pilot's license flying light aircraft. After divorcing, he moved to the U.S., initially in Annapolis, where he was negotiating contracts to sell to the U.S. Navy. He later taught carpentry classes at Anne Arundel Community College and would go on to build many homes in the county. Peter loved the Everly Brothers, Elvis, Patsy Cline, and Roy Orbison. His favorite takeaway from his trip to Nashville was the Johnny Cash Museum. At this point in the story, Peter met Edna, but we'll save the best for last. Peter enjoyed flying, sailing, and he loved nothing more than a good party. And oh, how he loved to make people laugh. Ardent neighbors adored his antics, stories, jokes, and funny faces. Peter was always entertaining at Thirsty Thursdays and during shuffleboard championships in the neighborhood and any other happy hour.
I wanted to share a story about Peter that I know everyone will appreciate, and it's about a home improvement project. Back in August, my wife bought me a really nice present for our anniversary, and I looked at it and I wasn't sure how to install it, and by October, I still hadn't installed it, and of course, Lisa said, well, when are you going to put that up? So I looked at that, looked at the instructions. I'll call Peter. I called Peter and asked him for help. He said, sure, what's your project? I said, well, it's a door knocker. And right away, Peter, in true Peter style, said, I'd be happy to help you with your knockers. And I said, well, you're talking to the wrong person. You need to talk to Lisa about that. So a few weeks later, he came up, and Edna drove him up, and I could tell he wasn't feeling well. He got out of the truck and came up and looked at the project, and he stood there and he stared at it, and he stared at it, and he stared at it, and he said, "This is what you need to do." And of course, I did what he told me to do, and this is what I have. A tribute to Peter.
Hi, my name is Matt Midas. Sue and I moved into the neighborhood in 2019, and we have met some fantastic people ever since. I first met Peter at one of the Thirsty Thursday events and remember thinking to myself how interesting his stories were. Peter and I would talk about fishing, engineering, and all kinds of other exciting topics, and I could see Peter lighting up as he recalled his adventures. I know he enjoyed sharing these stories, and I wish I had been able to spend more time with him. I learned a lot about Peter and some of the exciting things he did on 2 continents. These discussions took a turn one afternoon when he challenged my engineering knowledge with a question about the McHugh engine cycle, stating that he had worked on it in Annapolis in the 1980s. I struggled with this until he gave me a clue that was a patent number. I looked that up, and it explained the propulsion system of a toy boat from the 1918s. This ended with a purchase on Amazon and a trip to Peter's house one afternoon, where we spent the rest of the afternoon on his front porch playing with pop-pop boats like 2 little kids, discussing ways to modify them. Every time Edna came out, she smiled at us and laughed. I truly enjoyed the time I spent with Peter listening to his stories, and am grateful for the short time I knew him. Peter was also a poet, and after talking about winter approaching one November day, he sent me the following in a text. "The whispers of winter came last night, blew on my roof and turned it white. Today all looks merry and bright, the whispers of winter have come." That was the last text that I got from Peter. I miss you, mate.
I want to share a story with you about Peter and Edna. Edna, you'll probably remember this story. It goes back into November when you were trying to change a light bulb in the ceiling fan in the bedroom. I want to read you the text message that Peter sent. Peter says, "Hi Rick, we need 2 light bulbs replaced in the bed fan light. No rush, but could you help sometime?" So my response is, "Sure. Is tomorrow okay?" Peter's response is, "Woodenhead Edna is trying to do it now against my protests. I have to get rid of all the ladders. I'll let you know later." My response was, "I'll be down in 10 minutes. And of course, we got it taken care of, and no blood was shed. Typical Peter and Edna. So, Edna, I hope you appreciate this one.
Edna loves to tell the story of the blizzard that kept Peter at her house for over 14 years. Peter adored Edna. They traveled together, fell in love with each other's kids, and danced the night away at the Fleet Reserve.
Well, Peter and I never talked about him living with me or moving in with me. It was just something we just never talked about. But we found out that my friends, Jim and Claudia, they lived where Tom and Linda live now, came down, and they were also friends of Peter's. He had worked on their house some years before and remained friends. So the 4 of us started being friends and going out together, doing things. And they invited us to their house in Florida. So after a while, we decided to go, and we went. And that year's when the big blizzard snow hit Crownsville. And we were delayed in Florida. We finally got home wondering how in the world we were going to get in the house. And Patrick, who lived next to me then, where Joanne and Eric now live, had opened a path from the road to our front door. And we got in, and Patrick offered to dig Peter's truck out. And Peter said, "No, let it sit." So he had to spend the night at my house. That night, we had another snowstorm. And Patrick was out there in the morning opening up the pathway and offered to dig Peter's truck out. And he said, "No, let the truck be." So he spent another night at my house. He never left. Eating supper or going out, and he would shout out, "Thank you, Patrick, for not digging out my truck."
I love her.
I know, she's lovely, isn't she? She's gorgeous.
And
And
I
she's
love
the
her some
kindest, she's the kindest soul, isn't she?
She is the most open-hearted soul you'll ever meet.
No.
Without judgment.
You can tell that from everybody in the community, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When she gives, it's not a considered gift, it's a given gift.
Yeah.
Immediately, you can
Yeah.
have it. And then I think, I was getting her something, and she says, oh, I'll get that. You know, I have to see if she gets it, and then I can maybe sometimes sneak it in as a present. It's not easy.
I know.
I sometimes think that, you know, she says she doesn't want to know what's going on with cancer. She didn't want to know with Ralph. And when she first said that to me about my cancer, I thought, that's a bit strange. It's a bit like Pollyanna, wants everything to be good. But now I realise what she's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
She's keeping herself together.
Yeah, yeah,
And without doing that, we both fall apart.
yeah.
He loved playing cribbage with Brock. He loved working little boats with Matt. Everybody has a story of their own about Peter. And it's always a good one.
The other woman in Peter's life who never left his side that morning of November 20th, 2023, was their beloved cat, Annie.
Oh my goodness. Annie was Peter's cat. He loved that kitty cat. And she is not happy. She meows she's never been a meower, that's the truth. But she meows mournfully. And she scratches his side of the bed. But she's getting better. I think she's starting to like me. Well, when we adopted her from the SPCA, they brought her out in a little pink blanket and gave her to Peter. So he thinks it's his cat. But Annie was my cat.
Yeah.
He just took over. Oh my goodness, he'd put her on a chair and take her for a rolling chair and take her for a ride, explain all the points of England, pointing to Annie while he rode her around on the wheeling of the chair.
Like she was the queen.
I guess that's what he thought. He treated her like a queen.
I've known Peter for about 40 years, obviously, since I met Lorraine, and he's always been the life and soul and liked the party, obviously, and a laugh. And I was able to turn the tables on him recently when he came to Scotland on a visit. He was returning back home to America, and he was at the station, local station. I was on duty as a police officer, and managed to get down there before he'd left and place him in handcuffs and arrest him, much to the shock of some of the passengers. But obviously once we explained that we knew him, it was all fine. I'm going to miss you, Peter. I'm going to miss the regular messages, especially over the last couple of years, putting the world to rights, which obviously Peter loved to do. And he used to update me quite regularly with the Liverpool scores when he knew I was working. I'm going to miss that contact. Slante, Peter.
As you'll know, my dad loved a good party, and generally he was a life and soul. And I have loads of lovely memories of the parties that they threw when we were younger, but one of my favourite memories is when my dad came to surprise me for my 50th birthday, and as usual he came suitably dressed and was a life and soul. And here's a short video to show my dad in action. Good night, Dad.
Now give me a little smooch.
Mwah! We love you!
I'm in shoot.